Hello.
Hello.
We're live. We're live on YouTube. This is BFS Live episode 93. We're here with Greg Lang, OG Rochester skateboarder. It is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? How's the world out there?
Hey, Rochester's great. Absolutely beautiful weather today. It's been very cold and dreary for a while, but we got a nice spring day today. A little windy, but pretty nice.
That's good. Yeah. There's been so much wind. I'm in Philadelphia. This year has been real windy down here. For a little while, I was getting really tired of it, but it seems to have mellowed out. Yeah. So we've had some really good weather, but it's about to get hot. Already people are turning on the air conditioners, and you can hear them running outside right now. It's about to be 90 degrees. We basically get like winter and a little bit of fall, a little bit of spring, and then summer.
Yeah.
So cool.
I'm originally from Jersey, so I'm pretty familiar. Didn't grow up too far from there. I actually got a fan in the podcast studio today because last week one of my cameras kept overheating and shutting off, which is a new problem. Is what it is. So
yeah, well, even Rochester's not that different. It's just like 5 or 10 degrees colder or hotter, one way or the other. Same difference.
Yep. And the skate park has zero insulation, and where this studio is, it's right up against the window, so I'll get like blasted with the sun despite it being there. I got a project coming up. I'm gonna insulate this whole room and mount an air conditioner so it'll be comfortable in here. So there'll be videos on that when I do all that stuff when I manage to find time. But anyway, we're gonna do maybe 2 hours or so here, probably less than 2 hours. I'm trying to cap it before that.
Right.
And we're basically gonna first half we're gonna talk about the OG skate scene in Rochester. So any of our listeners who watched the Alan or Aaron episodes, your name came up multiple times. When I shared that you're going to be on the podcast, I actually got a couple DMs, people being like, "No way!" So that's really cool. Because admittedly, I don't know who you are, and you might be the first guest I really don't know. We never even had a conversation prior to the few minutes we talked before the show, so this is kind of a little different experience for me. But yeah, we'll talk about kind of the OG Rochester skate scene and early Krudco days like those guys talked about, and then in the second half, we're going to kind of get into all the stuff you've done post your skateboarding career, if you want to put it that way. And then because it seems like you've done some pretty cool stuff. So
yeah, Brian.
Why don't we start with just like give me the 2 minute. Who are you and what's your relationship to skateboarding?
So my name's Greg Lang, as some people know, but maybe not everybody anymore. And my relationship to skating was that when I was really young, maybe like 2 years old, I think someone, maybe my sister, got a skateboard somehow, and I just took it and like wouldn't give it back, and was just straight kneeboarding down the driveway. I couldn't stop. It was just like all day long, every day, until the thing got stolen. I think I left it in the yard. It was gone. I loved skateboarding ever since. I've never turned around one day and thought, skateboarding, it's always been a part of my life.
And for a little context, around what year was this?
Well, 76, 77.
Oh, okay. So way back there, way back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a Nash Goofy Foot. It had clay wheels, and my partner Annie actually found one just a couple weeks ago, like an actual one, like one of the boards I had. Wheels, everything. It's such a piece of junk. Like if I tried to do anything on it, it would break. But it was perfect for like a little kid.
Yeah. And so your board gets stolen, and so you ended up. I'm sure you got another one. You said you're like 2 when this happened?
Well, and my parents were pretty pissed off that I left it in the yard. So I think they were trying to teach me a lesson and didn't just buy me a new one. So a bunch of years went by, I didn't have one. And then I think when Back to the Future came around, also like Police Academy, there was like skateboarding in that. Powell was really getting big, Bones Brigade. stuff like that was starting to happen. And kids, there was like a boom, and all the kids in my neighborhood got fat boards, basically. Like I had skinny boards, like little old school wooden, like narrow 6-inch boards for most of my life when I was really young, anything that I had. But yeah, once we got like the big ones, that's when like tricks started to happen. People started building ramps in like this parking lot down the street. They also, people riding bikes too. Like just before that, there was like a shift, right? Like people kind of went one way or the other. And we had BMX bikes too at the same time. And I just got my ass handed to me trying to do like some jump and was like, I'm out. Like, nope. I'm just gonna skateboard like this. This is a lot like more forgiving, you know. Like a couple of my friends fell really hard, bombing hills, and like yeah. So I kind of went in that direction because of that. Then everybody stopped, and I had to go further. Right, basically left the neighborhood looking for other people to skate with, and ended up down in this parking lot. And there's like a whole crew of people around Fairport. Where near where I live, where the Wegmans is down there, there was like a office plaza, like a Burger King and a bunch of banks and stuff like that, like money banks. Like they just had like medians and curbs and railroad ties and stuff like that. We just set up and board slide on, trying to figure out basically how to learn kickflips and whatever we could figure out. A couple of dudes had videos that we could watch in their VCRs. I didn't have any of that stuff in my house, so learning everything was really kind of trial and error by trying to see other people around do it because I didn't have anybody to watch, like YouTube and things like that. Like you can learn so many tricks just from like viewing someone landing it rather than look at a photo in a magazine and be like, dude, I don't even know how that dude even got up in the air in the first place, and then where's he going? You know, so like kind of not deceiving, but like just disorienting, you know, and trying to figure out what to do. So yeah, there was just a lot of that trial and error and learning to go farther, explore the world, end up meeting more people, and then we end up down in the city, and then things really start getting cool at that point, right? Like this dude Sean Flaherty, who's one of the illest skateboarding legends from Fairport or Rochester region, basically was my older friend, mentor, who we just were best buds and just skated. He had me skating everywhere. There was no, we take the bus, but there was no getting in a car. There was no taking your bike and riding it far. We were skating there, like according to him. And we were doing tricks the whole damn way. So it was basically between that and Rochester. And then that was back when Samurai was around. And there was a big scene kind of popping. But pretty quickly after I got older, Samurai started to kind of go its own way. Like different things were happening with like, I think skateboarding maybe was in its like boom and bust period or something like that or whatever. And yeah, I'd gone to California once, come back, didn't really figure out how to like get involved in the industry or anything like that. And that was around 93. So after a failure of trying to move up to San Francisco, kind of bebopping around the state and trying to like get my foot in the door, it didn't really work out. So end up back in Rochester, and then that's around when I think Krudco kind of started to like come around, where it was like that was like another wave. Like there was a real down period where like I basically never skated out in Fairport with like little crew dudes. I think those guys actually own the Old Skull skate shop. They got that shop now, and those were some dudes from Fairport that I used to skate with back in the day too. So I don't know, man. It's just a lot of years of like spending time skating around that Rochester region, and then Buffalo and Syracuse and all those different things with different people over the years. And then Krudco ended up being kind of the fire that we needed in order to like jump from being from Rochester to being a part of the world, where we could kind of like have this resource that we could use as an opportunity, right? So it's like, here's a team of dudes who are all pushing each other, and we're going to link up with people in the industry. We're going to get people talking. We're going to make videos. We're going to take photos. We're going to try to get stuff out. And then we're going to be a part of the conversation of skateboarding to whatever degree that can be. And for me, I mean, I loved Rochester and wanted to kind of do everything from there. Never actually wanted to move there, but then ended up getting opportunities in California that I had to kind of, at the time I felt like I had to go. So I ended up moving out there, and that was sort of like, I don't know what year that was. I can't really tell you. My like concept of time is so warped without a calendar. I start losing like the years, so to speak. But yeah, anyway, I feel like I'm starting to ramble here.
It's all good. So did you know Alan or Aaron prior to them starting Krudco?
Yeah, a little bit. I worked at a bookstore called the Village Green, and it was in Fairport, and Alan used to roll in with his friends and grab like Trans Worlds and stuff. He always said, "What's up?" And they were from Victor, which is like a town over. There was a lot of overlap, a lot of friends, a lot of people knew each other from those areas for forever. And I'm sure I skated with Alan before I even knew I was skating with Alan. And maybe vice versa, right? He may probably skated with me, didn't know what my name was or anything at that time. We were so young. But Aaron, no. Aaron was from the other side of the city, basically. I never really made it out to like, I think Greece and Gates and Chilai and all those areas where he was from out that way, Honeyway. I mean, I'm not sure exactly. But it was far enough away. I didn't have a car that like I didn't get that far. But once we went to community college, that's where Aaron and I ended up crossing paths. Somewhere at MCC is where we ended up, I think, finally linking up. And then I went by the shop like pretty much immediately. There wasn't anybody else that you could get anything from it at that point. Everything's dead at that point.
So what was your relationship to the skate shop, Krudco? Were you, I believe they said you were on the team?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I guess officially we would call it that. That's what we called it at the time. But I wanted to do something with skating. I hadn't given up on myself yet. Even though I was taking classes at MCC and just working odd jobs, I was like, yeah, I still want to be a skater. So I talked to Aaron and was like, dude, I need a footing. I need to get into the industry somehow. If you help me, I'll help you. Like, what do you want? What do you need? What do you need help with? You know, like, so we just basically started like making all these crazy little paper flyers, cutting them up with like paper slicer. And then like, I was just giving them to everybody I knew, that any high schools around where I lived or whatever. And we just started trying to drive all the skateboarding traffic to Krudco. Like everybody everywhere, just give them something, you know. And then Aaron was like, dude, I'll whatever you know I can do to help you out, get you connected with people, or you know, get you like hooked up with whatever you need. He was always really gracious about a lot, being very, you know, very helpful, always very helpful towards me at the very least. You know, I can't really talk for anybody else's experience. From day one, Aaron and I were always really good friends and had a good relationship in terms of like sponsored and skate shop owner that I, you know, theoretically worked for in that way.
So to just piece this timeline together, Krudco started, what was it, like 94, somewhere in there? 92, 91, somewhere in there? And then you said you went to California for a while, then you came back. Can you just kind of...
So it'd be like... Yeah, it'd be like, I think probably around 94, 95. Would I be wrong there? I don't know. But it was around the turn of the beginning of Krudco when it was in the tire spot.
Okay.
So probably, yeah, I'd say 94, 95, somewhere around that general area. Because, yeah, I wasn't on the West Coast for very long. And a pretty failed attempt to try to, like, get out there, and ended up turning around and coming back, and then just, like, posting up, trying to figure out what to do.
And how long were you ultimately in Rochester before you left to, I presume, go to college or whatever?
Well, most of my childhood, from when I was in about third grade. I mean, I was born there. My family moved away to Texas and then Georgia and then back and forth. And then we ended up, boom, stayed in Rochester for the rest of that time. And then, then my parents took off a couple years after I was out of high school. So I was, trying to get out of Dodge and do something out on the West Coast. But coming back, was a little bit tricky because then it was like quickly I had to kind of assimilate myself and grow up, for whatever that's worth. And but Krudco was also happening all around that same time, so there was felt like there was a lot of cool things going on. And and once things started to kind of pop off and blow up, like that's when a lot of opportunities and things like that started to happen for everybody. But yeah, right at the beginning there. We were kind of like posted up together, and then I also broke my ankle real bad around that time, and I had nothing to do. I had like the things was obliterated. There's like 9 screws and a plate and all that kind of business in there. So I was laid up for like 3 months. I just went to the shop and was like, Aaron, what do you want to just, can I hang out here? I just need to get out of the house, like get a ride down there, crutch up the stairs, and then just sit there and, scoot outdoors, smoke cigarettes, scoot back in, hang out with Aaron, talk with people that came in, and just try to like plan stuff. Like we just come up with crazy ideas. Arden would come in, all those people from Gates and where like Aaron and all those guys were from would come through. And then I started meeting so many other people from the other side of the city too that I didn't know. They were out there, and we started going to skating spots out there and stuff like that all the time with them. So it was like, yeah, things were kind of changing, but yeah, we were just always hanging out. Like, just always with those guys with a busted foot for like a few months for like that first summer when like Krudco was really kind of starting to get its footing as like a shop to some degree, and yeah. That was like pretty cool. It wasn't fun breaking my ankle, but
of course not.
Anyway.
Were you doing anything cool when you broke it?
Not even, man. Like every bad injury is like the dumbest thing in the world. Like I was basically at some church on East Avenue, right near Key Bank. You could probably go over there and see the rail. And I was just like, boom, board slide. God, I don't want you skating at a church. Like sat on my ankle and just boom, like popped like a stick. Like, no, that's the worst way to go. Like, just don't fall back on your leg, man.
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It ended up healing up, I ended up having a long life as, still do active things with it. So it's not all that bad, but it was like pretty devastating at the time. Didn't know what would happen.
So your role with Krudco was like friendship and a team rider?
Yeah, at the beginning. And then we started meeting more people and just kind of building what we kind of, I don't know if we were calling it a team at the time, but, Aaron we were doing things to try to support the shop, whether they be, I don't know if we did demos from time to time. We put together contests at where the sinkhole was at the tire shop and just tried to like get people shopping there. And so I guess that was sort of like, the beginning of the semblance of what a team would have been. And I guess some people were just, like eventually people kind of just separate themselves, whether that's inadvertently or people kind of bring politics into the mix. But some of it started like whatever the people that are trying to do tricks and film and do things with their skateboards and excel or whatever started to kind of turn into like more of a team where like other people didn't really get left behind, but they were like more like the lifestyle crew that were just there to skate and have a great time living as a skateboarder, but not necessarily try to make a career out of it or something like that, But I think those of us that wanted to kind of like try to grab more and see what we could do with it started to sort of like become a little bit of a team because we needed stuff, like you're going through wood like crazy, you're going through shoes like crazy, and, you're busting yourself at the same time. And so you need stuff to keep it going. And having that resource, it costs something, right? So I'm trying to recall exactly what we did, but at the same time, like I think we were all pretty conservative about things at that time anyway. Nobody was really like trying to, there wasn't like a big team sort of like construction going on or anything like that. But there was definitely started to become like this versus this and us and them or whatever, kind of stuff.
Were you more on the lifestyle side or more on the like, let's get clips and, produce some content?
I wanted to like do what I had to do, but I always hated filming, really. Like realistically, like I just wanted to go skate. That was just it. The whole thing for me was just going out and rolling around in the city and skating, and then trying to do it while you were out skating that day. Like, I don't know, like the whole beginning of filming, I couldn't articulate it like that at the time, but that was really like, I guess the icky part for me that I didn't really like. But I had to do something in order to get people to know you're there, right? You have to like, make a video, take a photo, do whatever you do, get yourself out there. So we started doing that as much as we could, and then made some little videos and things like that. And for whatever it's worth, they worked. I mean, years later, someone actually found one of my sponsor me videos or whatever at Soul Tech. And was like, dude, I found your old video, like, and I was like, oh man, like, but they watched it, you know what I mean? And so like that all kind of it all fit together into some big puzzle in some way. But Krudco was really supportive at that time, where we were like, me and it was, just a few names like Dano, Jay Odell, Matt Harris, and a few other people that were like, Arden, kind of more part of Krudco, trying to film stuff. We're like actively trying to use the camera. In fact, the other day I was thinking to myself about how like I used to get frustrated because people would borrow the camera and I'd be at work and they'd be out filming and I'd be trying to find them afterwards and wanting to get clips too, but then they'd be all tired. We're all done, kind of thing. And like, all that stuff started to happen, but it was a lot of fun to try to like figure out how to make Rochester look like something like a Sub-Zero video was really what we were trying to make, really, I think at that time. That was really the benchmark for like East Coast skate videos. And so we were trying to get Rochester on the map.
So did you have sections in the Krudco videos?
What's that?
Did you have sections in the Krudco videos, full sections?
The first one, no. Me and Tom Brodesser shared a part in the Black video. The next two, is there 4 videos altogether? Or maybe 5, I don't know. But I did it. The next couple, was it whatever, 2 or 3, I had my own part. Then I got last part in one of them, which was like an honor.
Which one was that?
I think maybe the Orange video. And and they just told me. I had no idea. Like I was just like in the little theater when that went down. That was a really cool moment to have lived in my life.
So you must have been pretty good.
What's that?
So you must have been pretty good.
I guess I was all right. I mean, I don't know what. That's subjective, kind of a thing. But yeah, I got up in some heavy videos, 411s, best of 411, Logic videos, like all that sorts of stuff like that over the years. I think that's significant, I would have liked to have had, little parts and things like that I could look back on. Maybe I could have worked harder at the time. But anyway, I was around a lot of people who were filming significant parts. Over the years, and just being a part of circles and skating with a lot of people who, who are the who's, you know what I mean? Whoever it is, like, as a part of all of that. So I think I say that my relationship to that and having a part of that says something about my ability as a skateboarder. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? Because I can't really rate it, but I'm happy with what I've done. I did almost everything I ever wanted to do. Let's put it that way.
I'm actually watching some clips from that part right now. There's some California footage in this part?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing some super like classic skate spots in this part. It's just Krudco Orange Greg Lang on YouTube if you guys want to pull it up. There's some good stuff in there. So you were pretty good.
Thanks. Yeah, that was all right, man. Some of that stuff, actually, in there, there's a line that I filmed there that was in the old office park that I was talking about earlier. I went back. I was
sick.
like, I'm just going to go film a line here just because, like, this is where I grew up skating, like, day one, kind of thing.
That's one of the coolest things in making, like, a local scene video. I did that for years, BMX videos. And there's, like, all these little things in the video that, like, other people don't really know, but you and your homies, you watch it, you're like, oh, that day, that spot. Oh, that clip of B-roll is because of, my homie, he, whatever, he pooped his pants on accident or something. Oh, there's so much in those. I tell the kids all the time, like, make a full length. Like, you can take all your clips and sure, you can put them on your Instagram too, but like put it all together into a cohesive project. Because, like you and I talking about this right now, if they're going to look back to a video 10, 15, 20 years, they're not going to go scrolling through Instagram. I'm trying to find my clips. They're going to be gone forever.
Yeah, there's a whole production process that lends itself to the experience. Whether it, like, you really enjoyed it or not, doesn't matter what side of it you were on. I think the end result, the struggle is worth it. And to put together, like, something that, like, significant, like a reel or whatever it is like kind of just fun to think about. How do you sequence yourself together in order to, like, make it into, like, a sentence, right? You're sort of like writing something for people to read. You're giving them a text to sort of reflect upon, like, a story that you're telling them about a time period of your life. And you can tell them who filmed it, what time of day it was, what happened before you landed that particular line, like why you didn't like or you did like whatever you did, like different people's reactions while you watched it. Like, I remember one person that I looked up to, like, saw some line from, like, I think that video was like, there's a manual in there, and he's like, you touched your front wheels. And I was like,
no!
Dude, like, why did you have to say that? Like, come on, man. Maybe I did. Who cares? Like, that was part of my style, like, leave me alone. People used to get or they probably still do get really technical about those sorts of things. I did too, but I don't know. Now I'm rather like, whatever. Touch your front wheels. Who cares? Skid your tail. I don't know. If you can make it look good anyway, like, why not? It's only when it looks bad. You're just like, now you got to do it over again. I guess he thought that touch looked bad. touch. But yeah.
So you were part of the Orange video, and they gave you the end section. They didn't even tell you. Did they tell you at the premiere, or were you, like, watching the video waiting for your section?
I knew before the premiere, like, but while they're editing it and putting the video together, I was sending them footage. And then I went back to Rochester for, like, a week or something and just, like, went crazy. Tried to, like, every day, me and Roy, I think Roy made that video, right? So that's when Roy and I started to, like, get a relationship together. When he was starting to do movement, he kind of, like, started to talk to me when I was skating for them. That's kind of how I got involved with him in the first place. But he was filming that video, and I went and stayed at his house with these crazy cats. And he got slept on his couch for, like, a week. And we just, like, every day just tried to find more spots. And so there was some stuff from, I was like, let's just go out to, like, Fairport and see what we can make out of one of these office park lines. And then there's also this dumb hill, which I think is, like, the hill at the end when I go up a driveway and, like, power slide, where, like, that hill was a hill I would go down every day when I was a little kid. And I actually met my first girlfriend on that hill, right? Like, old history of, like, being just a little kid growing up in that neighborhood. And there was, like, this weird little crazy turned hill that had overgrown everything and cracks everywhere. There used to be an empty pool at this abandoned house at the top of it that we used to skate back in the day, like, real dirty ass, crusty abandoned pool. And yeah, so, like, I was like, let's go bomb down that hill. It'll just be funny, like bringing it back.
That's what I'm saying. Those clips, like, there's a thought behind it. There's a reason it's in the part. And that's why the full-length videos are just so cool. they're little time capsules, and especially for something like a Krudco, a skate shop that's as historic as that shop, has these videos archiving these different generations. And oh man, I'm gonna probably have Aaron on again soon to talk more about that, the old days and the early scene. But why don't you tell me what was like, that mid '90s, late '90s Krudco heyday? What was the scene like in Rochester, the skate scene?
It was pretty like diverse, and also like kind of competitive at the time. And there was a lot of people just trying to like bring their performance into it, which kind of I think made everybody get more stoked and get better. Things just started. Everybody started getting better. I think it didn't matter who you were. It was contagious. Where a lot of people were just doing things that in places that you hadn't thought of. Like I'd been skating whatever spot for X number of years longer than anybody else, and I hadn't thought of that. And suddenly somebody like ollied this gap over here that, But yeah, there was also like a lot of like issues in the streets. Like there was a lot of like things going on around you, and the spots were crusty, but you could skate a lot of things a lot easier. And running from cops was just like the cat and mouse game. It was just part of like the fun of your day. Nothing really happened from it. Like just always worst thing. They took the board, gave you a ticket. I think a couple of us ever like spent some time just like in jail as like a principal, you know what I mean? They're just like, let's just put him in a holding for like 5 hours and try to make him stop skating the spot. You know what I mean? But there was a lot of that going on. So there was a lot of like, interaction with just like also like law enforcement, a lot of people out and about in Rochester. That was like as times were changing and the economy was changing. And then, and also us out skating all over the city all the time, trying to like, jump off of bigger things and, and a lot of that. But there was also a lot of like wild times in all sorts of ways, because lots of people started coming in to do demos. And so there was like an influx of new people, kind of bringing new energy and all sorts of different, lifestyles and things like that kind of intermingling together. Was sort of just like the spirit of the times, I guess. A lot of hip hop, a lot of punk rock, as usual, with like skateboarding and a lot of these types of like, counterculture sorts of groups of people, and a lot of good times, a lot of fun.
When you say that scene was competitive, do you mean that like in like positive competition between skaters to be better, or was it like this shop, that shop type of rivalry competition?
Well, the shop things in Rochester are always kind of funny because there's always a shop rivalry no matter what era you want to talk about it. Like I think Samurai's was like HORC or whatever, and then maybe there was like, I don't know, a couple shops like out in the suburbs, but there was always this like, which shop are you lined up with? Who are you affiliated with kind of a thing. And that was my experience from day one. Like if you went downtown and you didn't hang out around Samurai and you weren't down with Samurai, you had problems hanging around and skating the spots where a lot of people that ran those streets, Samurai area, Liberty Pole, YMCA, all that stuff, is where we all were. And like, so you had to kind of be down with whatever shop. It sort of like became part of the street kind of mentality. It was like part of that. And like, it was part of Samurai. And so that's where I picked it up. Like I was from the burbs. And so we didn't have that. When I went back to high school, like none of that conversation came into the, like, the classroom or something like that there. But like down in downtown, there was sort of like posse stuff going on. But it was sort of lighthearted, no one, I don't think, ever really, I don't know how far people pushed it or whatever, but you could get a little bit ostracized or like become kind of an outsider if you weren't kind of following the rules correctly, you know what I mean? So if you were down with one shop, you kind of had to be down with that shop. If you jumped ship or crossed lines, usually there's problems, you know. And it wasn't just like getting grip tape. It was like, no, like you just didn't even go there. You didn't even physically get up and go to that space, kind of a thing. But a lot of that started to change with, like, you know, when Krudco came along, there was nothing. There was a big gap. I think Hardpacked came around pretty quickly after that. They were more of a snowboard shop anyway. And then like a couple other little shops like Sky High and maybe something else on Monroe Avenue sold some boards. But we made sure that everybody knew that if you were about skating, like hardcore street skating, for better or worse, Krudco was where it was at. Like that's where you went. And when you went there, you got treated like you were a homie. Like we made sure of that, because some of that vibe, they used to hang out, you know, we used to hang out at Samurai and vibe the shit out of people. We weren't cool about it, but we were young kids and didn't really know any better. And like the owner, Art, used to just always just be like, dude, get out of here, go get a job, go do something. You know, like stop vibing, get the hell out of the shop, you know, kind of thing. But that was just, you know, the kids learning and growing up, really. It was, you know, never a bad thing. But anyway, yeah, I'm starting to ramble again.
Yeah. So back in those days, Krudco was doing a lot of events, bringing people. I know there was like some Red Bull backed events, and give me like in that day, what was like the sickest event that you were a part of?
I think so V1 for me, right, was the Mad Circle demo that came to Rochester, and that was the day when I got noticed by them and was like, give us a call in 2 weeks. We want to talk. And that really started.
What's Mad Circle?
Mad Circle was a company that was a part of where like Giant Distribution is, if that's even around anymore. I don't know. I'm really out of touch. So whatever Element, there was Element, there was New Deal, Black Label, Destructo, there was a couple wheel companies a part of it. We're all part of Giant Distribution. And Mad Circle was a part of that as well for a long time. Mad Circle ended up going out of business for whatever reason, but it was Justin Gerard's company, and like Scott Johnston skated for them. And so did that dude that skated for Expedition for a while, real steezy skater from San Francisco. But anyway, yeah, they were dope. Like, and Mad Circle was one of the sickest companies around, right? That dopest video, Let the Horns Blow, was this really classic skate video. But they came through town and they brought Kenny Reed, and he was skating for New Deal. And the team manager for all this affiliate stuff, right, ever was going on at the time was this dude from Albany. And he and Kenny were friends. And then when they encountered me at this demo where I had a really good day, they were trying to put together this like group of upstate skaters that were all going to skate for New Deal. And Aaron Susky was actually one of them, the dude from Buffalo that skated for Birdhouse in New York, like all these crazy 5 borough, lots of sick companies he skated for, and Kenny Reed, and I forget, I was going to be the Rochester guy, I guess, but in the meantime, things took a dive with him, and team managers got all mixed up and affiliated, rearranged, and never anything ended up picking up again. The next dude was not into me, so I just hung on by a thread until I could figure out what to do next, so to speak, and all that happened after I initially then finally moved to California and kind of got settled there for a while, probably in the mid 2000s or something like that. That was during the Krudco days as well. And that demo was the day for me. That was one of my greatest days I think I've ever had. There was also another toy machine demo at Spinners that was really fun. And we basically skated with them and set up all these contraptions. And it ended up being just me and Jamie Thomas just doing back-to-back tricks on this crazy bump to flat bar thing. And just had a lot of fun skating with them, not trying to be hometown, like one upper guy, you know what I mean? Like the demo comes to town and then you show up and then like start flexing, on the team at the demo. It was never about that. And I don't know if people ever thought and got me wrong, but really it was more like being super stoked to skate with people that you never get to skate with, and that like their energy and all those videos that they put out there, like you're just like, dude, I don't want to like get your autograph or anything, but I want to go like back to back, like kick flip back lips or something with you, because like that stokes me out to like motivate me to skate, kind of a thing. I don't know if that even gets anywhere with people, but at any rate, that was my perspective, and that was just mad fun. But like all that stuff we did together as groups, like even the worst demos where we would go and they would put us in some like dirty lot with like gravel and like poop or something on the ground, and you fall and cut your hands and you have a rotten day, like didn't really matter. Like they were still fun, because that was like a really cool crew to be a part of, to be around, like good friends, really good company, so to speak. So
the first demo you brought up, where was that?
Those were all in the sinkhole right behind the old shop, behind the Tire Associates shop. We called it the sinkhole because there was like the pavement just fell in and made a big hole, and then we just put wedges on either side. And so basically dudes would show up and like we'd be like, oh look, we got this, like basically if you fall in the hole, like you die. Like
so this is just a straight up a demo in a parking lot.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
An uneven parking lot, like ramps set up here and there, flat bars, boxes, and we just went back and forth, just like kicking it. But I think over the years, realistically, like we just got used to skating this stuff, and we saw a lot of people do a lot of tricks with it, and so we kind of knew like, if someone shows up, like I'm gonna rock and roll that wall or something, you know what I mean? And then you do it, and they'd be like, "What?" Because like that's the first time they saw somebody do that. But like, we've been seeing it for a little while now, so like,
what would the turnout be on these jams, or demos you'd have back in the day, like to get some perspective for how bumping the skate scene was? How many people are coming out to one of these things?
75, 100.
Wow.
Like the whole walls were lined with people, like all kinds of people. People that skated, people that didn't, like friends of friends of friends, and like, I mean, a lot of people just hanging out drinking 40s, whoever they were, people that would walk by and just like get into it, get stoked. Sometimes belligerent people would end up out there. You have to kind of like move people around or something like that. But at any rate, yeah, it was just like sort of like a skate jam in a parking lot that no one kicked us out of because it had a big hole in the parking lot anyway. And that's where those early demos were, all of them. The first contest was in the front of the parking lot, which was like kind of absurd if you saw how small that is. We probably put 2 ramps in. That was it. Just trying to like make something of the scene. That came out of like me and Aaron just chatting when my ankle was broken, and just kind of saying like, hey, look, like let's have a demo. Like let's call people and see who will come here. And Consolidated was like, yeah, hell yeah, we'll be there. And officially it had to do with the tire spot, because I think Aaron brought up Jason Jesse was stoked on the performance tire spot, so he wanted to like, get involved, so to speak. So at any rate, yeah, that was like, a good amount of people would show up to those. A good size amount of people would be skating. I mean, like ants all over the place, just people, hustling the course, just interacting with each other, weaving in and out, like dude hitting this, dude hitting that, kind of a thing. Everybody watching out for each other. Sometimes you have minor collisions, but generally, people would like, get the trick or not, kind of a thing. Everybody was like lighthearted about it all and had a great time.
Yeah, Krudco must have done so much back in the day. I've been here for 13 years now, and in like the duration of time I've been here, they're not doing as much with the events and community engagement, although obviously they're still very active in the scene, supporting particular people doing like documentaries or whatever. But when I moved here, I was just astonished at how almost ubiquitous Krudco was. You go to the bar or Wegmans and you see people in like Krudco hoodies. You see like a middle-aged woman in a Krudco hoodie, and I was like, damn, like that's it. Like Aaron and Alan, they did such a good job to weave that skate shop into the culture of this city. It's truly remarkable and admirable.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I was like, before Alan came along, that's when the shop really shifted and became, more part of like, we're an entity within the city that's connected to like other entities, and they started to like really be able to have much more influence in terms of like a civic engagement kind of a level. When I was there, before I went off to California and tried to like make skateboarding happen, there was a lot more of just like a street skateboarding skate shop vibe. A lot of different people, right? But it was more like underground kind of skate scene sort of a thing. It hadn't developed into that next part yet. And that was a lot around the time when like Aaron moved to the second shop next to the fire shop on Howell Street. And then that's when like, more things started to happen around from there. He had the shop there, but we would still have the demos over on the sinkhole across town. So yeah, we went and then we ended up all living at this like big like mansion type house that was divided up into apartments on like, I don't know, over in the South Wedge or something like that. And like we all took it over pretty much. Like I had an apartment upstairs, Aaron and Jamie and Ben White had an apartment downstairs, and then it was on like parties, people, everybody going up and down everywhere kind of a thing. Everybody stayed there that came through town. And so it was just like became this sort of influx of people for a while. And Punk Rock Dave was living with me for like a long time, and then like that was like eventually that had to come to an end. But at any rate, yeah, that was around. There was a lot of things happening around that time too, because we had so many new people just opening it up. We're like hitting all these companies up and being like, "Will you come through Rochester and stop here on your tour?" And just asking the question, like simply just saying like, "Hey, you know what? Like, this is a fun city, and there's a lot of things to skate here, and there's a lot of fun things to do, and there's a lot of really cool people. So you should stop here, and we're gonna put on a good time. We're gonna make sure you have a good demo. You're gonna know where to eat. You're not gonna get vibed. Nothing bad's gonna happen to you while you're here." And then slowly but surely, like bigger teams started to come and show up. And I think once Toy Machine came through, and that was the big one. That was a real big demo. And then Mad Circle was around that same time, and people started to get noticed from our area too. I think Jason Odell definitely started to get noticed by people, and then there was a vibe of like people trying to get hooked up and sponsored. But and then Justin Barnes was on the other side of that whole thing over at Hardpacked, and he kind of bridged them together with the whole scene started to kind of pop off even more, because at that point we were all hanging out with Justin since way back in the day, and then he was like skating for and working at Hardpacked, and then we were just like, I don't know, for me at least subjectively, I was like, whatever, all the rivalries of shops are gone, who gives a crap, like let's just all be like one skateboarding whatever action sports family, and just like we can make fun of each other all day long, but like in the end of the day no one else cares about us, right? And so we're all sort of part of this same camp, which like kind of also makes you start to think more about your relationship with the rest of the community and all those kinds of things. And so, yeah, we started to evolve for sure. All of us did. For me, it was like, well, I had to make that step and go to California and try to test the waters and see if I can get on New Deal, which was like been flowing me boards for all this time, and see if I can get some footage and getting some videos. And it started working, started going for it. But I honestly probably you could say that I deceived myself to a degree where I just hated filming all the damn time. And like I just wanted to start skating spots like I did back in the day with my friends. So I started like hanging out with people in California that were just skated, like hardcore skaters. that just had jobs that ripped. Like, you wouldn't even believe, like, dudes that grew up a part of the skateboarding industry and a part of really amazing skateboarding all the time, who just decided not to go be a pro skater. Could have, and all those things that kind of came along with it. And that was my path. And then Aaron and Alan turned around and started to really develop Krudco into something much more significant, where like there was an actual team, videos were coming out, there was a media presence, even before social media. Like, they really started to kind of like integrate themselves into like becoming a entity within Rochester, that, which is like remarkable that it's still there. After all these years, it survives the weather, of all kinds, of all the changes that, have gone on since back sitting in that little shop with a busted foot, hanging out with Aaron all day, to like, meeting all those people, to like now, being such a significant part of everything. Is like such a sick process to have like observed, some part of it being my experience, and other parts really like from a distance. After a while, I haven't been there in a while, right? So, a lot of it I missed out on, I guess you could say.
I want to go back to the comment you made about filming. I know it's not really on topic with the Krudco thing, but
sure,
that's totally, I get it. I did that. I filmed for years and years and years. And I don't know how many people can really relate to this, because it's really a small, even people with it, like, it's a small demographic of people that end up riding or skating, whatever. And then even smaller demographic that end up like committed to filming long-term projects. So this is a super niche comment, but you absolutely can, they say you mistake the forest for the trees. If you just get so stuck in that mindset of like riding, skating is filming, and then you start to obsess about it, and you're only thinking about clips and getting the camera and getting to work. And it's almost like you skate to warm up to get the clip. And then one day, like, you're finally, like you said, you're like, oh, I never just like ride to chill and enjoy it. Like, I totally forgot why I did this. I was just obsessed with this like thing and the views and who's going to say who filmed what at what certain spot. And when I started the business here, I had to completely pull out from all the filming and caring about doing videos. And I looked back on it and I was like, man, that was all kind of silly. There was like so much energy and time put into, like, and the memories are priceless, and the clips are awesome. But I don't know if I needed to do that for a decade, decade of my life, just nothing but, God, the travel. It's hard to say that, because the traveling and the memories and the spots are all so cool. But I totally empathize with that. Just like, you're like, what am I doing out here?
Yeah. I guess like, it's hard. It's a hard balance. It's a hard thing to do. Even in any aspect of your life, like capturing media of it, right, it adds an extra element of stress to whatever the experiences that you're doing. And that became more of what we were doing than not. And it's really hard to balance that out. And I guess for me, I really kind of I felt like I just lost the balance of it, and it really started to kind of turn me off a little bit. And I think for me, it was just, I was never good enough for myself. I was just seeing myself over and over again, and just like nothing was ever going to be, I was never going to be satisfied. And so I was just,
that's
I
totally
always
it.
evaluate myself and feel like, it's almost like an eating disorder. You just start to like see yourself so much, and you're just like, I can't continue watching myself because I just hate watching myself. Not that I hate it, but I don't think I'm good enough. Like.
Yeah, you literally take what's so good about riding, and you flipped it over, right? You rode because it made you feel good. Right? It was enjoyable. You liked it. Then you put so much pressure on this like metric of clips that now you're like unhappy with the stuff you are doing. Like, you somehow like just like completely inverted it. Like, your skating went into a black hole and came out the other side, and the priority structure was just totally upside down.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you realize, okay, how can I reconcile this? And you find a way to make it fun again, which I eventually ended up doing. but that ended up having to like come back to, I think, more of my roots, being around friends and being around familiar areas, even familiar weather, just places, names, whatever, made it more, I guess, personal, rather than doing it so far from home. Whereas, like, okay, all these other people have gone to these steps and done X, Y, and Z, and now I'm here, and now what? There doesn't feel like there's anything unique to it. And it just feels, yeah, just, I don't know, too performative for me, where even though the same thing's going on somewhere else, I can inject this, like, sort of personal reason for going there, like we talked about before. Like, I went back to this little parking lot because I just wanted to, go back and film something there. Not like I'll ever go back to that famous handrail and skate it again, because other people skated there. It's like it takes away, I think, some of your culture. Like, it's just, I don't know if even that's the right way to put it, but I was a part of Rochester and I was a part of that scene, and I didn't want to leave that scene. And I think now it's kind of cool in one way that, like, kids can technology has progressed in lots of different ways, many ways negative, but one of the positives for something like skateboarders is that everybody has a camera now. Where, like, when I was doing this, finding someone to film, there was no one to film. They just didn't exist, right? And your friend that did, he might have done a good job, might have done a bad job. You just never wanted to know. And you do something that you can remember it in your head. You'll never ever, have that record of it or anything like that, because there just wasn't anybody there to get, like, there was no media to catch it, kind of a thing. And that problem of the media made it so that you had to physically get up and go to wherever that media camera was, right? Which was California. But now you could do that anywhere, right? You could be in any place on the globe, right, and film skateboarding. And that's kind of a cool thing, I think, because now you don't have to leave home, right, necessarily. You can stay there and,
Yeah, I talk about this a lot on the show. I call it the decentralization of action sports, and it's good that everyone has the camera, but at the same time, it really it took the crew out of action sports. Like you said, you used to have to you had to go to where the camera was. Who's the buddy? Cameras were expensive. The longer you go back, the more of a pain in the ass it is to film and capture footage and edit. Now you don't need that. Everyone has a phone, so you really don't see strong crews anymore. You'll have, like, these two kids are friends, these three kids are friends. He only skates alone. It's, like, so different now, because you don't need friends now. You just need a tripod, CapCut, and TikTok. That's all you need now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is even pushing it. Like, filming yourself isn't something that I've ever been personally comfortable with. I think that you need to have someone holding the camera, right? I think that's part of it. And that involves at least two people. But I guess I'm getting more at the fact that the technology is there. It's more accessible for two people, like a two-person crew can share that burden together. Like, plenty of people I skated with over the years, we'd be at a spot together. Nobody else could be there, right? We're just there hustling it out, trying to get a clip. And then your friend sat there with you for 2 hours and filmed you. And then now you turn it around, you're all battered and beat up, and then you're going to sit there with him for the next 2 hours, and hopefully they land their trick faster than you did or whatever, right? But now it's on you, right? You got to hold that camera for them. And I think you can still do that with whatever technology you have, you know what I mean? But I think that there's a social factor to that we're kind of getting at, which filming yourself kind of takes out of that altogether, right? That's a whole different kind of a ball game in terms of the way that people use technology. You know what I mean? And I don't know where that kind of offshoot kind of came from, right? That's not something that I could, like, trace, but that's different, I think, to me, to where, like, yeah, those crews back in the day had, like, a filmer, maybe a photographer, or maybe that person took on two roles, and then everybody else was sort of, like, skating and doing different things within that kind of crew, and sort of, like, taking on kind of different roles, so to speak, because it was all, you had to do everything yourself. There were no other resources, but so it's kind of hard to predict how things have changed. But my kind of point is that like it was one thing to have to like, skateboarding on the East Coast was, New York City, Atlanta, DC, Jersey areas, things like that, Philly, whatever. And like I was from Rochester, and I was kind of like almost, might as well be from Canada, for the most part. And like, there's nobody, whatever. So then I get affiliated with a West Coast company. That's my opportunity. So I was just like, damn it, I got to move to California. And that, I don't know, I mean, that brought Krudco out there with me, right? The Aaron and Alan came out and visited, like different people came through and things like that. But it also wasn't my environment. And so me skating in Southern California sort of just doesn't fit, you know what I mean? Like trying to do the best I can, but like I never really felt 100% comfortable trying to like hustle it out in that environment altogether. But yeah, filming and all that just can take a lot of it away from you, depending on how you process it and all that kind of thing. But I think there is maybe like an over obsession to some degree of like filming within these different kinds of sports where like I think sometimes we gotta take a step back and just be like, you know what, like no cameras day, like I don't care what you're doing, I don't give a crap. Like if you gotta do something with your Instagram, you gotta leave, like it's no cameras day. Or like analog cameras day, like if you're gonna take a picture, it's gotta be on 35mm or something. Just like make up dumb games or whatever. You have people that act different or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about what we lost when we're not making. You don't have a filmer anymore, right? And you're not making a longer content, right? Because like riders always have one perception of what they think their style is and how they want it presented. But a filmer can watch you skate and be like, no, like there's this particular thing about their style that I want to accentuate. Like the way he skates, it's like this type of song. I know that I'm going to put, it's like more of the artistic side of it. And having someone that films with you and knows your style and like has that relationship between what the trick is, what the spot is, who the rider is, can put together something that's so much, so much more artistic and complex and more nuanced than, just you. Certainly something you're going to do self-filmed, but, that I feel like that's like an art that's almost getting lost, that long, the long format, like even a lot of bands now release like one or two songs. Like it's different than like we're doing this whole album. We're filming this whole skate video. There's going to be a theme, and sometimes with some riders and filmers, it doesn't work out good because the riders are like, no, I want this type of clip film this type of way. And I've always been an advocate for like let the videographer, like they have the vision. They're gonna be on the camera all freaking day. They're gonna capture the footage. They're gonna edit the footage. Like they have such a big incentive to do a good job because they're putting in so much work. But a lot of times the riders are like, no, I'm putting in the work. I'm the man.
Yeah, I think that requires this group, right? And like something has to like facilitate this sort of like social situation, like what happened with Krudco, right? So like Roy or whoever filmer like started coming in. I think Jay Goodrich maybe was filming a lot before Roy, back when they did a different video or whatever. But anyway, there was a group of people that was supported through this economic system, the skate shop, that was doing well enough to support these people to make these videos. And they were able to kind of construct a group of people where it all came together, where one person took the job as the filmer for this long-term project. And they went and filmed everybody, right? And so it was part of their, I guess, line of work, so to speak, to get to know each person, hang out, right? Like almost like a research project to figure out how to capture someone's style as it realistically should be captured. And so they kind of get to know you where like, filming with Roy, he knew where to put the camera when you did whatever trick, because he knew if you fell, you were going to shoot out that way. And that was really what happened. Like, he started to recognize your like little, sorts of things going on. And also, also knew how to look at the spot and figure out how to like construct, the whole cinematography of it is part of their craft, So
there's also a trust issue. You're filming lines with a fisheye. You really have to trust that, like, that guy, like the skater has to trust, because like it's not comfortable when there's someone rolling next to you and they're like inches away. So like both the filmer and the skater have to trust each other. Because I always say to people, if you're not nervous filming with a fisheye, then you're not close enough. And that's what everything was back in VX and Death Lens. That's how it rolled. So you had to be right up in there, and that can be really uncomfortable for riders that don't film much.
Yeah, it's pretty awkward when that thing started coming around. But yeah, and like we've all hit a lens or we've all hit a light, and just felt terrible about it. But yeah, but those guys, filmers, they're skating with you and just right up in there and just as dynamic and working just as hard as like, people that are skating sometimes. To just, be hunched over and filming lines over and over and over again, like, and also sitting there and like trying to help motivate you as you're like cracking and falling apart and like not, able to like see the value in what you're doing anymore because you're just sick of it. You've tried it a million times and just like want to call it a day, but those guys always there to kind of keep you going a little bit. Well, sometimes, not all of them, but anyways, like, but yeah, that overall thing though kind of comes together because there's opportunities for people to do that stuff, right? Videos to be made, groups of people to be in those videos. And without those sorts of like economic systems like surrounding those, like a shop or a company or whatever, those things just don't get done because how else is the group, like people don't know how to organize the group any other way. So I guess you could start a club or like a little like fun team. Like you could make a fake team and then be like, we're making videos, right? And then it would just be like turn into something, right? It could become something more than you all ever could have thought about it because it came together as a unit, and then other people want a part of that and they dig on it, and so they're into it. And then you can like build off of that in whatever direction you want to. But you got to have a project, right? An idea, whatever it is. Like, hey, man, we got Joe, Steve, Kim, Becky, and like, Alex. I got a filmer. Like, let's get together and make a project. What are we going to call it? How are we going to make it? What is our timeline? Like, put it all together. And that's all we did. But we had a dude who also gave us grip tape, you know what I mean? And like helped us like, when we cried about shit, like told us that we were like just being punks and like get back out there. Like, here's a Band-Aid, bail you out of jail if the cops came and took your board and all that stuff. Like you had somebody to call to like help you out. And that's what, your little shop sponsors did. That's what Aaron did for a lot of us over the years. Like, dude, skating at the garage, like so-and-so got popped. Like we got to go get him out of jail, And so, stupid things like that. But those were all resources that kind of like helped create that community, which could then facilitate those sorts of projects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had a couple random questions left about the old school scene, and then we're going to transition to talking about your life beyond skateboarding. One question in the chat, someone asked, whatever happened to Dan Hochman? Hochman? He said he asked if you went out to California as well.
Is it whatever happened to or whatever happened with?
I don't know. So he said, didn't he also go out to California and did he get picked up by a company? I feel like he just disappeared.
I think Dan started to become kind of big, but I don't know anything beyond. He was on a trip with some dude across Russia. He was out there like traveling places that no one's ever been before type traveling. But yeah, they did like a train trip across Siberia. I think they made a video about it. But he got on some companies. I don't remember which ones, but I didn't see him out in California. I never ran into him out there, I don't think. Maybe I did, and I don't remember. Could be, but Dan was real good. We had some differences of opinion about waxing curbs one time, but that was the only thing that like me and Dan ever clashed about. Whatever, like who put too much wax on the ledge.
All right, next question. Someone asked me, this is a DM sent in on Instagram, to ask you who George J. Log is.
You want to know the story about George Log? I don't know if I should tell it. Oh man, George Log's just like an alias. It's just a joke. Basically, what happened was like I used to be at demos back in the day, and like no one ever knew who you were. So I used to just write whoever's name on pieces of paper, like old school skaters, you know, like Shugo Kubo, or like, I don't know, I would write Tony Hawk sometimes. No one knew who Greg Lang was, so okay. So then once I actually signed my name to something, my friend saw this, my friend Aaron, and he's like, dude, you didn't even write your name. You wrote George Log, right? So Gregory Lang, I guess, looked like George Log. So then it sort of just became this joke over the years where like people would be like, you know, you get like wild or like say something stupid or like just jokingly, right? You know, tongue in cheek. People would be like, oh, George Log did it or whatever, kind of a thing. It was just sort of a joke and like a little kind of goofy nickname and alias for like the wild days of Greg living, you know, off on the lands of like wherever, traveling around the U.S. and like trying to get places and like just the wild times you come into. So there's a little bit about George Log.
He said something about only person from Rochester to have a signature pair of shorts.
I did have my own shorts, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, from Fuel Clothing.
That's what he said.
Was the name of the brand, and yeah, they're from like was it Hilton Head? Was it South Carolina down there? Yeah, and they gave me an opportunity to try to design some shorts that didn't come out all that great, but yes, they actually did have my signature written across the pocket, embroidered on there, and I had an ad. I can't remember. Maybe it was in Juice magazine. There was a little ad, a little like vertical strip ad in there for the shorts. Yeah.
All right, cool. So back in the in that era, Rochester Krudco scene, in your opinion, who was the best skater?
It's a really tough question.
Well, you could take it as who was your favorite, if that comes out to be a bit different than who was the best.
My favorite skater from Rochester is actually Casey Haley.
Oh, really?
Yes, hands down. When I was the little kid, his style influenced me a lot, and we became friends over the years. And it was always he and I have always been pretty tight as friends, and I respect him a lot.
He's a really good dude.
Yeah, he was my first favorite like Rochester skater. However, over the years, I've definitely loved, I think, particular aspects of different people's skating, but I think that there's been a lot of really, really amazing, talented people that come from Rochester, whether it be skateboarding or art or any whatever have you. Something about that place breeds people into like really hardened, motivated, do it yourself, get things done, don't bullshit, put it in your face, you know, kind of attitude. And that translates and goes a long way outside of that. And so I think anybody that, you know, toughed it out and was like a part of Rochester and went and took that and did anything with it, like those are my favorite skaters from Rochester, you know what I mean? Like just, you know, trying to push it beyond and kind of do things with it, I guess, to try to like, I don't know, do more with, I don't know, get themselves further out there and not just like stay in Rochester and like stay home or whatever, but like try to branch out and like, whether it be, from there or physically going from there or whatever kind of a thing, adding to that whole conversation of like what Rochester consists of, is like people that have done lots of different things and gone lots of different places, But cool. I don't know, a single favorite is so hard to depict. Like, I almost want to say Jay Odell. Was just like, he and I pushed each other a lot over the years. And his just style really like just one of the best styles, I think, in terms of like a good friend that I had over the years, like just great skateboarding. Can pretty much skate anything immediately. But I don't know.
Are there any spots from that era, that generation that aren't around anymore that you wish you could somehow get in a time machine and go back and skate it?
Ooh, wow. Well, I don't know what condition Liberty Pole is in, but Liberty Pole has always been one of my favorite places to just be.
It's a cool spot.
And I just, I love that place. And just like Main Street as a spot, going from where we were over by the YMCA and Windsor Street and all that, and we would just get on Main Street and push down Main Street and just manual down Main Street and just hit every ledge and hit Liberty Pole and ollie this crack, like had it figured out, but we could just do lines and like that whole strip there, that such a good spot. So many people always to interact with, so many crazy things happen, like down by that McDonald's or whatever. I don't know if it was still there on Main Street, but it was just bonkers down there back in the day, and like trying to skate through there. You get clotheslined by somebody, like easy taken out. People just didn't like it. It was all kinds of like riffraff, but that was such a fun.
What was the last time you were down there?
I don't know, probably over 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember now. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been back.
So they just like renovated the Sibley building there. It's all new around Liberty Pole now, so it's like there's other obstacles around there that are skatable. Across the street, they call it Parcel 5. It was like a big gravel lot after they tore down the mall, and then it was up in the air. It was going to be this. It was going to be a casino, and in typical Rochester fashion, like nothing, no one ever committed to anything. Now it's just like this giant grass field where they do some festivals, and around that whole area, they put on all these like little benches. There's like a 3-stair. And then the Pastime Skate Shop is right there as well. So to this day, that still is like you can go down there most nights and there's going to be people skating. There's this big, really smooth concrete patch in the middle of the grass field with a Rochester flower painted on it, and it's just this big flat ground. Like there's always skaters there, so that's never changed. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We've been lurking around there for as long as I can remember. Just before they put in the bricks and like the marble pole that was there for a long time, there was like this little embankment thing or whatever, and then like quickly, as far back as I can remember, that quickly was taken out, and then one that was there for the longest time was the one that we skated every day, every single day, like just mainly skated the 3 stairs on the inside and would just do flat ground tricks, just like, back and forth and chasing the pigeons away, and pretty much that was about it, right? But yeah, like when we ran around to the other side towards the road, there was always like a cop that would come by and like thumb you away or whatever kind of thing. So if you stayed in the middle, you could kind of like duck down a little bit if like dudes were coming by. Like if you saw the cops, everybody go sit down or whatever, and like pretend like they weren't doing anything, and then like hop up a minute later and back to it. So yeah, that was like super fun.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the skate scene back in that day before we move on to some other stuff?
Yeah, well, it was really fun for me to grow up during that time. And like, I think just one of the great things about, the diversity of all the crazy people that came from all these suburbs, kind of came into the city and started like hanging out, intermingling with each other, and like started to develop, like we were the only people that skateboarded. So we were, by default, this little group amongst ourselves. And like, yeah, and then once Krudco things started going with that, it was just like, yeah, just always great times, man. Like I can't stress that enough. That it was just everything about it was just like always, stressful but really good times overall with everybody that was involved during those days. From way back in Samurai to like all the way up until I ended up kind of branching off and going off on my own outside of Rochester. It's just like, yeah, something that was hard to like remove myself from, because it was such a great group of people that to be around. I guess that's the last thing I would add. It's just like, thanks everybody for being there. Making my life better by default.
Awesome. Love to hear it. You haven't been up here in 15 years?
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
great.
Like I said, like I try to think back. I've been in Philly since like 2005, and then like I was back and forth a couple times. But yeah, I think last time I was up there, I was just like, yeah, I guess I didn't really feel like there was anything for me to go back up there to go see for a while. No particular reason.
I feel that.
So I haven't made it up. I feel like riding my bike that way sometimes, but that'd be a long one.
It's funny because I used to spend a ton of time in Philly. I graduated in 2005, I think, and my best friend went to UArts, and he got an apartment, I think, like 23rd and Christian, and so we were 18 and had a little studio apartment for all of us to crash in Philly. So we were just there all the time, and now I haven't been there in 15 years. So it's probably like unrecognizable now. And we used to spend so much time in downtown Philly, like Love Park and City Hall and the Domino's, those Domino's spot right there too. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff's been redesigned now. And,
oh yeah.
A lot of the old stuff's gone. But yeah, of course it's been all through media and everything, I guess, like with people losing skate spots and things like that. But all these big cities are in transition right now. Even the small ones, like whatever size you're in, it's been like a lot of development, people moving into cities and kind of things changing along those lines, which at the same time is like, kind of colonized skateboarding and action sports and things like that in a sense where it like puts it in a place that now is like become legitimized and looks like, the street and stuff like that. That's a different experience for people, but that's what it had to evolve into in order to survive. You can't go skate like I did anymore. And that's one of the things that made me kind of not go skate anymore was that like what I loved about skating wasn't possible. You can no longer go wax ledges and skate them. Like, I don't think. I don't know. Like, I never.
Well, skate stoppers are just so ubiquitous now. It's just like built into the design of everything everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot more like people just aren't having it. It's just, and I don't think people grew up that way either. So new generations don't see a ledge and go wax it up and attack it at night. They have like kind of maybe a different relationship with it. But again, I don't know, man. I don't really know what's going on. But that's just my suspicion, so
I feel that.
Kind of a thing, but that to me, like, I don't like going to like one spot. I like to go cruise around and like find spots and then skate them for a while and then move on or whatever. And all that kind of conflicts with filming, conflicts with a lot of things, right? Because you got to set up, break it up, take it down, do different things, taking a photo, you got to get lights out, things like that. It kind of takes away from that ride, that movement, that sort of like ebb and flow of like being in and out of different places in the city, not necessarily staying anywhere for like long periods of time, maybe spending a half an hour, 20 minutes or something, but then like rolling out, and not really like being, having that much of a presence, but then, taking a different approach to it is a little bit of a,
I'm totally with you there. I'm like I don't. I skate, but I never really skated like that. I rode BMX, and I was like your typical East Coast street guy. It was about, all the stuff you did in between the spots. It was about being out there. It was about the relationship between you and the spot, and just that's the best part of it for me. And then, you know, street became very, very popular in BMX, and all like the park riders transitioned over to riding street, and like they're way better than the street riders, but they just wanted to go to like California spots that are like perfectly waxed and like amazing stuff and just do the coolest tricks, to where like the real street rider is like, oh, look at this ledge, there's this chunk missing, so it's like grind, next grind. Like you let the spot tells you what it is. It's about the relationship between it's like the right trick for the right spot, not the best trick you could do on the ledge. Like you find the pole jam that sets you up at the thing, and it's like, oh, sometimes you roll up to a spot and it's talking to you. It's like, this is the thing that needs to happen at this spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different way to approach it, you know, and I think that like with the way that the sport transitions and what's popular in media, sometimes that becomes the popular thing to see, right? So you'd have more, you know, videos and things like that, and people coming out with like, you know, sponsors and getting support and things like that for cruising around, right? For hitting like spots and doing 360 flips over streets and things like Ricky Oyola and those guys were doing, whatever. And then that's different when it transitions into like someone switch 360 flipping like 45 stairs, you know, and grinding big handrails and different things like that. And then that becomes popular. And so all those people, right? It's the same thing with like vert and street, right? Where like once upon a time, vert skaters were like the biggest thing in the world, and all these contests and all these resources and things were coming along with that. And then boom, it died. And then street skating became like this new popular entity. And then all these guys start getting paid, blah, blah, blah. And it's not until like both these industries can kind of find their footing and people start to kind of like all start to make like different media with it. But like for me, it was like, you know, that experience of going from like someone who cruises around in cities and skate spots for little periods of time to then going and driving around in a car on freeways and getting out and then like going to this spot where somebody like switched 360 flipped it last night. And I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like, this doesn't feel like skateboarding to me at all. I want to just go ride down the sidewalk real quick. Kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like I said, I was from Jersey, and every year, from as soon as one of our friends got a license, every spring break we would head south, and we would hit Philly, Baltimore, DC, Richmond, sometimes Raleigh, sometimes Atlanta. And this is, you know, 2003, 4, 5, 6. Like, no, we didn't have smartphones. We had like MapQuest directions. We're literally just reading the signs on the interstate. We would just, I mean, we were like 16, 17 years old. We'd get to Charlotte or whatever, be like, we'll park here, free parking. And then we just go out and ride all day. Remember where we parked the car? That's like unfathomable to like our youth now. And like those memories of me just looking at the size of the city. Okay, we're over by this, and just like, that was it. I romanticized those days so much.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I don't know what the differences are and why, but like, yeah, there were times when like, I remember driving into some city in the middle of the night, and my friend finding this, like, we just pulled in, I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest. I want to say it was like maybe St. Louis or something like that, and just like found this park with all these ledges, and just wake up, he's like, dude, look what I found. And we got out of the car and skated. Like, we were just, it was like, we don't know where in the world we are. We're dead tired. Don't know what's going on, but like, we're sure as hell gonna skate this spot, you know, sort of a thing. And like, I guess the whole big thing, I think, had to do something to me with like exploring the world, really. Like,
yes,
the tricks were there and the tricks were fun, but looking in hindsight, it was really about the experience of moving around and being with other people that wanted to kind of share in that experience with me, you know?
100%. Do you ever skate anymore these days?
I haven't been on a board other than to like roll around on the sidewalk in years. Like, I don't even try tricks. I don't know if that's like a shameful act, but I got so into these crazy bike challenges I've been going through that I don't want to get hurt skating, so that I can't do that sort of a thing, because it's a really physically taxing process. So what's
the crazy bike things you're doing? Let's tell the people. What is this? Let's hear it. I'm a bike guy, so I'm excited about this.
All right. Well, I started riding track bikes fixed gear bikes that are made for riding in velodromes on streets. Started going through the motions with that, but then ended up developing an interest into, I guess it would be endurance, fixed gear cycling. I don't know if it would be ultra endurance or not. I'm not sure where the delineation is, but I've been doing, the longest ride I've done is 600 kilometers, which is something like, I don't know, I'd have to do the translation of miles, but if you have a calculator, a way to translate it, but doing these rides over terrain with mountains and lots of climbs and descents on fixed gear bikes that don't have handbrakes.
That's great.
And that's been this endeavor that I've been going through and trying to push myself to set goals of my own personal goals of like speed achievements and distance achievements and different things like that.
600 kilometers is 372 miles.
Yeah.
And you've done that? You've done that?
Yeah.
Over what duration of time?
So the last one we did across Pennsylvania was like 30 something hours. I can't remember exactly.
So basically in a straight shot.
Yeah, I think it was more like, well, I want to say more like probably 37 hours because we did stop to sleep halfway through.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I have not done one that's like a full, we planned to ride all day and then all night and then into the next day, but there's a lot of factors that you run into in the process, which forced us to have to find shelter and sleep out a couple of hours and then get back out there and finish the rest of the ride as quick as we can. But yeah, so I've done 3 different rides now consisting of that length. That's the longest I've done yet. And trying to figure out a way to get past that at some point, but I need to work through that. And it also is you have to calculate a lot of logistical things because since the bike doesn't have brakes and you theoretically only have 2 gear ratios to pick from across this very terrain, you have to study things quite a bit to try to figure out what ratios you can pick that will allow you to get up and down all this terrain that you're going to set yourself up for. As well as, since it doesn't have brakes, you're wearing out your back tire. So you have to figure out the logistics of bringing a tire where you can get an extra one if you burn yours out. All kinds of things like that that are really difficult and challenging because the bike, it's so stripped down and so simple that if anything goes wrong with it, it doesn't work. It basically, if you take any part off of it, it's like, BMX without brakes. Basically just you and the bike, the chain, the gear, whatever you have, that's that. But this has the fixed gear so you can slow down the rear wheel with your legs. And then if you want to drive out and have a good time, you lock them up and do some power slides and have some fun.
Yeah, I don't know if most people would understand how terrifying it must be going 20, probably anything above 25 miles an hour on a fixed gear with no brakes. That's crazy.
Yeah, some of the descents I get up to 40 miles an hour.
40 is really fast on a bike. I've gone 40 on a bike quite a few times. That's fast. Yeah,
the RPMs are like 140, 150 revolutions per minute. My legs are going, and you really have to be, you're basically strapped to a treadmill throughout the duration, and you have to have absolute focus and confidence in yourself to be able to control that thing in the way that it needs to be controlled to avoid whatever obstacles that may be in your path. And you can't stop it, but you can control the speed of it and avoid things. And so you have to very kind of strategically think about everything you're doing. But I'll tell you what, man, when I first started riding these things, like a hill that I would push down on a skateboard, I was terrified to ride one of these bikes down. It took a long time to build up to the ability to do something like what I'm doing now. A long time. I think probably 12 years at least doing these bigger rides and trying to just work it out and figure out, all the logistics of it, how to survive through the whole thing, as well as like handle this bike that is just like a monster. It's like a stallion underneath you, like a really the geometry of the bike is really responsive. Everything you put into it and do with it, it's all there. There's no backing out. Once you're committed into like a descent like that, there's no backing out. 100% be into it.
That's crazy. I've done a lot of riding, and I didn't even have a bike with gears until a couple of years ago. I did everything on a single speed. So like I have some context here. A lot of people probably wouldn't have any. I couldn't really wrap their head around how crazy that is. That is crazy. I got about 10,000 miles on my single speed, but now I have a geared bike. I pull my daughter in a bike trailer, and it's surprisingly harder than you'd think. And I used to ride like 4,000 or 5,000 miles a year, and like a lot of that's like single speed mountain biking. And I was like, I could pull a trailer with a 1-year-old in it. Mm-hmm. It's so hard. I don't know, because the thing's a big wind sail, but it's tough.
Yeah, for sure. Even just like throwing supplies on your bike, a couple water bottles, like you'll feel like the difference of that. And then throwing a 100-pound kid in a trailer and like pulling that around is like, that's a lot of, you might want like an e-assist or something like that. Help yourself.
I did me and two of my friends did the ride from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. It's the Great Allegheny Passage and then the C&O Canal Trail. It's like 355 miles, and we did that bike camping. So we did like 350 over 5 days with like 75-pound bikes. And that was pretty rough.
Yeah, that's a good trail. But a lot of the ride I was just on in April, we take 100 miles of that Great Allegheny Passage, and then we get off of it and go up into the mountains. It kind of veers northeast of there, whereas you guys continued southeast down to, I think, Washington through Maryland and all of that, right?
Yeah, once you get to Cumberland, it switches over.
Yeah, and that gets much more. The terrain gets much more difficult down there.
It got more rugged.
Track bike, no. But that 100 miles of gravel was rough on me, that's for sure. My comrade that I was with, Noah and Carver, had larger tires, tubeless, and they were much more comfortable than I was. I was in rough shape for that kind of thing.
What size? What size are we talking now?
25C tires.
You're 25s, and they were. What were they on?
Yeah. They were on like 30 tubeless tires, I think.
Also fixed gear?
Yeah. All three of us rode fixed gear together. We had a like little crew of weirdos riding fixed gear across Pennsylvania.
Do you remember when fixed gear freestyle was kind of popular for a few years?
Yeah.
It was big in the New York City scene.
Uh-huh. It was a phenomenon for a little while. It's big in Jakarta, I think, like different countries over there is still pretty popular. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting time and a lot of like interesting tricks and spins and things like that. But when I first started messing around with fixed gear bikes or whatever, I tried to do some of the like backward circles and like things like that. But I don't know, I was kind of done with like learning tricks because like I spent my life skateboarding and learning all these tricks. So like, I was like, yeah, I think it would be fun to learn wheelies on this. But, one night I went to a parking lot. I was like, I'm going to learn wheelies on this bike or whatever. And like, I ate shit like 5 times. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I know I can learn this, but I'm going to fall like 15 more times. And I just don't really feel like doing that. Like, I know it all too well at this point, so it's cool. I've learned what I need to learn for now.
I can absolutely relate to what you're saying about with the fixed gear and the hills and how you have to be so in the cockpit, right? There's no mind wandering. You got to be there. I've mountain biked on a rigid single speed with flat pedals, and the terrain around here is not rough, but when you're rigid and single speed, like it's really important that you can get the top of that pedal stroke. If you're going up a hill and there's terrain, all that stuff really matters. So it's a type of ride that I like is that very much I need to be right here, fully focused, picking my line, where my tire goes, where my pedal is, all that stuff really, really matters. And I always attributed that to coming from BMX. Because when it comes to cycling, cycling exists on like a paradigm. On one side, you have proactive riding. On one side, you have reactive riding. And this is for like aggressive, mountain bike to BMX world, not road or whatever. But, in BMX, in theory, it's like skateboarding. It should be pretty much 100% proactive. If your skating has become reactive, it means something has gone wrong, right? To where once you get into the realms of mountain biking, it starts to become slightly more reactive. You're kind of chilling and then reacting to the terrain and whatnot. So I always attributed my like for single speed cross country mountain biking because I came from BMX. I wanted to be very engaged with my riding. Do you think your background in skateboarding made you, set you up to be into this like super intense, engaging version of cycling that you're doing?
Yeah. I'm like an all in or nothing person. And I think that these challenges are just like challenges that I developed skateboarding. And it's sort of setting a goal and trying to reach that goal, but also that mindset of like commitment to something. Like, I'm going to land this trick no matter what. I'm going to finish this route no matter what. I don't care how bad this hurts. Like, I think that that's something that comes with that, where like there's a sort of mental toughness there, where like someone asked me one time, like, how do you deal with the pain or whatever? And it's like, well, if it's not going to cripple me, I don't care. Like muscle cramps, I just keep pedaling. I don't care. Like, unless I'm going to like fall down and just like I've had it where I've gone home and been like in real rough shape and just put myself through like too long of time on a hot day or something. But it's like, I think that, that precision of riding to like seeing where your tire is going to go, seeing those tiny little pieces on the ground and just being able to like scan the ground, one little look, and you know what's there. Like, cause that, when you're skating with 50 millimeter wheels around a city and you're eyeing potholes and this, that, and the other thing, there's traffic around you and you're trying to navigate and like drive out and have a good time. You learn to like look at things and make this like photograph of the distances of everything around you and what you can do with it at any given time, which becomes this like whole system of like survival and like kind of like navigating the environment. And that all came and developed through my developed through my experience skateboarding, where like I directly apply that to riding these bikes. And the weirdest thing about this whole thing was I had a friend that started riding these bikes with me, and we started learning how to skid. And we figured out that we had a dominant front foot and a dominant front foot for skidding. And his was goofy, and he started skating goofy. Mine was regular, and I had started skating regular. And so like we were like, what's up with that? There's this direct correlation between, the way your body's functioning on this object, that then we just started taking those kinds of ideas and applying them the same way and realizing that like, okay, this is just another set of wheels under a human that gives us this like exhilarating feeling, right? We love sitting on wheels and just hitting the button or pedaling the pedals or pushing the board and making it do stuff. And somehow we jive and get like a huge rush out of that, right? It's just another variation of the same thing, and all these principles translate and apply and all that. But to be able to like do things with it, that may have came from like, beating myself up skateboarding and just not really caring if my ankle hurts, like whatever,
I'm going to have to step in with some bike nomenclature here. Goofy on a bike is actually different than goofy on a skateboard. So, right. And on a bike, there's actually multiple versions of goofy. So on a bike, you can be left foot forward or right foot forward, but goofy is the relationship between what direction you prefer to spin, what direction your grind side is on, and what direction, which foot you have forward. So a typical bike rider, you would spin away from your front foot and you would grind on your front foot side. So if you're going up to a quarter pipe and you'd spin to the left, you'd air to the left, so your pegs would be on the right. So as you carved, you'd lean over and you could double peg the quarter. Now you could switch one of those three variables and you get three different versions of goofy. So it's a little bit more nuanced in that realm. Because in
Yeah.
in skating, you kind of have front side, back side. In biking, up until maybe the last 15 years, people kind of only spun one direction, and switch spins were kind of rare. And now it's like BMX is like skateboarding, where everyone is just so good. Everyone does every trick both directions. And then also particular grinds kind of work differently relative to your feet, the way your body. You can imagine, like, if you're right foot forward or left foot forward, your hips on the bike are on like an angle to the frame. So depending on what grind you're doing, your body is like pushing your bike into the ledge or rail or out of it. So like it gets kind of nuanced there. But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I didn't know anything about that, which is really interesting, right? It almost sounds like there's an addition of, like, I don't know, switch and footing and relationship to objects and things like that, which adds a lot of variables that, like, skateboarding, borrowing theirs from surfing never really were a part of the equation altogether. But, like, that relationship of, like, left foot forward or right foot forward was the relationship that we noticed, where he was goofy, I was regular, and it correlated. So, but beyond that, I don't know what what else that would come out. I don't know if even track cycling has anything with that, where, like, people track stand with different dominant foot forward in different races, and maybe they have, like, a name for that, but I don't even know.
It's not uncommon for people in the cycling world, like in mountain biking, to not realize that they have a dominant foot forward. They just never think about it until someone points it out.
Huh. Yeah.
But one more fun fact, scooters, some scooters push Mongo, and it's equally as shamed upon in the scooter world as it is in the skateboard world.
No way.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, there really isn't any equivalent to Mongo in BMX, though.
What's that?
There's not really an equivalent to Mongo in BMX, though.
Huh, that's cool. A lot of people missed that shame. I pushed Mongo when I first started skating. But I think because I was all messed up, because I actually ended up, I think, skating the wrong way, which was why I ended up being okay skating switch. Because I think for that whole time, I started mixed up because I'm ambidextrous. Some things I do left-handed, some things I do right. And so I think skateboarding mixed all that up, and it took me a while to figure out what to do, how to handle it. So when I started skating switch all the time, pushing was easy because I started skating and pushing the wrong way, and I had to switch it. Like, I think I tweaked my ankle, and I was like, well, I got to push the right way. So I learned it, and then I legitimized myself. I never had to live with that stigma anymore. But once I turned it around, everybody else was pushing Mongo switch, and I was just like, yo, check this out. Bang, and I had it all ready to go.
I skate all messed up too. I learned to skateboard just like going around. I go to the corner store or whatever, and I skated regular. And then when I tried to learn how to ollie, it made more sense goofy. So if I'm skating flat ground, if I'm going to do like a shove it, or like I landed a heel flip recently, so I still skate a little. I skate goofy. But when I skate the mini ramp, I skate the mini ramp regular. So I'm like, and then I spin to the left on a bike. But on a scooter, I could spin either way. When I tail up on a bike, I kick the bike that way. But when I tail up on a scooter, I kick the scooter that way because I scoot regular. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, that's cool though.
Because scooters are like that. Scooters are regular or goofy too. Their feet go one direction to the other as well.
Yeah. But yeah, you could mess with people and be like, oh, I'm doing this switch, but it's actually your dominant way. But since you've like switched up from like object to object, it like, you could use it to your advantage if you wanted to, but just as a joke, But yeah, who cares, man? Whatever. It's all good. It's kind of cool to be able to like do things all sorts of different ways, because the thing to me was like, sometimes you go to a spot and like you got a better backside, and like the angle gives you a better angle backside or something. And so like if you skated, the wrong way and you can't skate it backside, well then your only option is to skate it switch. That was also kind of cool because then you could bring like another level to like every spot, and then sort of use that to like, to your advantage in terms of like that, competing with people over media, so to speak, you know what I mean? And like, everybody else did this trick, well, then you had to do it switch by default. That's kind of another level you can kind of bring to it.
That's really interesting. It's also, all of it's nuanced. Everything is just so in depth.
It is, man. There's so much to everything. Makes you feel like a fool after a while. You're like, I know nothing. Like, you know what I mean?
Is there like a big scene around this endurance track bike thing you do? Or is it just like a super niche?
Yeah, I know of like a few people in media over the years that I've seen doing, that were inspiring to me, that I've seen doing bigger rides. But I don't know, how often they're really doing anything anymore. And I don't know of anyone else other than a couple of other guys that I rode with, Noah and Carver I mentioned that I rode with in across Pennsylvania, that have any interest in riding far on fixed gear track bikes. Actually, no, I take that back. Another guy named Mike in New Jersey just started like pushing, and another dude named Isaac just started pushing some bigger miles. But I think people have been doing this for a while. I think it's sort of like it goes in ebbs and flows. And like there's been, 10, 15 years ago, I think there was a flux of people on the West Coast doing some like big fixed gear rides over like pretty far distances. And then no one really, you never really hear of anybody doing anything for a while. But I don't know how many people at all are approaching this kind of thing around here. As far as I know, I'm the only one, aside from these other two guys, and our three or four guys. And then, sorry, I'm going to leave anybody out, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's doing it. But it's also very polarizing because of the brakes thing. A lot of people don't really understand how the bike works, and like how much skill you have to or practice you have to put into being able to approach like 100 miles on something like this. Like, you're never able to stop pedaling the whole way, and you have to back pedal and control your speed with your legs, and so you're adding a whole nother level of the dynamic to the whole puzzle. But I don't really know. I don't have a road bike. I've never ridden a road bike with gears, three-wheel over a long distance, so I can't really draw a good comparison. So I should stop there. But it's its own sort of thing. And I think, I don't know, maybe it'll get more popular, who knows, but it takes a while to get, up to the level of being able to like ride a bike really far in the first place, let alone, figuring out how to do it without handbrakes.
So you didn't even train on other bikes. You just all in on this fixed gear thing?
Yeah. I don't really know anything much about cycling. I don't have a cycling background. Like, I honestly,
that's so sick.
Most of the years of my life, I did not even know whatever bike. I don't care. Like, in fact, like I knew BMX guys in high school and a bunch of guys later that were around Rochester, and we had always had little like tit for tats of response, like little things like that, but always like friendly with each other. But I didn't know anything about what they were doing. I didn't know anything about any parts. I didn't know even like tires were different sizes or anything. And I just like rode a fixed gear bike and was like, this is how I always wanted a bike to feel. And it felt a lot like skateboarding to me on a bike. For some reason, I can't really say exactly why I made that relationship, but it was, I think, the perpetual emotion kind of a thing of like moving around in a place, right, that like really kind of got me, mesmerized and sort of passionate and like, a little bit obsessed, maybe a lot obsessed with like seeing how far you can go with this very simple machine.
I could see how coming from skateboarding, having brakes on your bike feels like a cop out,
A little bit. I mean, I wouldn't call it that, but I think that the control factor, the way you carve and skid and power slide and do little skips and hops and things like that, all that translates really well. But then you can go way farther, right? And so you can just take this machine that sort of translates in the same way across 100 miles and then go through this environment of just ups and downs and turns and starts and stops and interactions with all sorts of different things, and just sort of blow your head out that like you get really addicted to that feeling. I think that's sort of what probably happens to a lot of endurance athletes, where they just start to get, you forget that it hurts, you get better, and then you just want to push yourself farther to try to get that next, sort of step. See if you can push yourself over that next level, because that feeling of achievement that comes with that is like, it's like landing a trick you've been trying for months, like getting it and like nailing it and knowing it looked good. It's the same thing as like riding 100 miles and then like not being tired after that. Like you took care of yourself, you like ripped it up. It's the same thing. You skidded the shit out of your tire. You come home and it's smoking. You're like, hell yeah, just like your board is just wrecked, but you nailed that trick. Like, hell yeah, it all translates through the whole thing, and all the aches and pains and everything that you went through are irrelevant. It's just part of the experience. It becomes part of the backdrop of the whole thing. So you don't even care. Like, if you can still walk, you're still skating, right? Like, you brought all these people with you to the spot. You better try. Mm-hmm. You better get up on that thing, because like otherwise you're wasting people's time and they won't go back with you. It's the same sort of thing. You set yourself up for this thing. Well, you got to succeed, because that's what you do. That's what you have to do. There's no other option. I've had situations where I wanted to abandon what I was doing, and just felt devastating to me. It's like walking away from a trick, not being able to get it, not being able to get it the way you want it. It's the same sort of thing.
Do you you use Strava? You're familiar with Strava?
Yeah, I'm on Strava.
After I started the skate park, it kind of, I lived at a skate park. I was here all day, every day. I didn't want to go to the skate park and ride BMX or skate when I wasn't at the skate park. It was just, so I really fell in love with mountain biking, and I got like really obsessive with Strava for a few years. And I was all about those KOMs,
Yeah,
and that became like my new, instead of filming videos, I would like look at the segments in the parks, and then I'd like analyze the terrain, and I'd ride through it a few times slow. And as I said earlier, I was riding on a rigid single speed with platform pedals, so I don't have all those other mechanical advantages other people have. And I would just like hammer and hammer and hammer. And I was trying to get 100 KOMs. I got to like 96, and now I don't really ride like that anymore. But like, I was like smoking people's times and doing it on a single speed. And it's the same thing coming from like the world of action sports. You're like, I'm just coming at this like with like, I'm grinding hard as hell. I don't care if it hurts. I don't care if it feels like my heart's going to explode, and then you do that for a while, and it doesn't take long. After about a year, your endurance is like ridiculous, because hammering single seed mountain biking is effectively like interval training. Hammer, chill, hammer, chill, hammer, chill. Those are the good old days. Now I have a baby and I don't get to ride.
Well, that's good. Not a bad trade-off, right?
Oh, no, it's wonderful. Do you have kids?
Yeah. No, I don't have any kids, but kids are great though. It's like if I had kids and I couldn't go ride my bike, I'd probably be like, whatever. Kids are cool.
It is incredible. My daughter's absolutely amazing. Life hanging out with my kid is just phenomenal. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like anyone, like. It's seriously incredible. So I have nothing but positive things to say. And what little times it is stressful is like nothing compared to like just, roll up. Today I went to my local coffee shop, and I come in. Oh, there's Alice and Dave, and oh man, it's such a joy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. For sure. Hell yeah.
Gets me all teared up. Well, we're at the 2-hour mark. You believe that?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, time flies and you just start blabbing away about things. I don't know if I said anything that
it's all good.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun to chat about the old days.
It'd be cool. Maybe one day we can get you back on, and we could bring in Aaron and do like a 3-way or something. I'll just kind of hang out and keep you kind of on somewhat of a right track.
That'd be a lot of fun. Sometimes I think like people give you context, and then you start remembering more things, more stories, that start to like jog your memory, kind of come back from things. But yeah, I think like, those days really like, just to, sort of if we're closing here, like those days really like molded a lot of the stuff that, you evolve into later on in life, and like those people and those crews that were around did a lot to, like, for me, to get to where I am now. It's kind of weird, like the way that the pathway goes, and you look back at it in hindsight, like I wouldn't, have expected myself to end up, talking about riding, track bikes, over long distances or something like that, and how that, that basically came from skateboarding. Like I think I broke my hand a couple weeks before we did this long ride across Pennsylvania, and I didn't know I broke it. And so it was kind of like that mentality where I was like, well, I'm not going to go to the doctor, because once I know it's broken, I'm not going to be able to do this ride. And I think that also kind of came from, some skateboarding background or whatever, where you're just like, if you know that something's wrong, you start acting differently, and then you're going to fall on your arm or do something. But if you have no idea, you'll just act as if things are normal, you know what I mean? So I went ahead and did it or whatever and finished the whole thing. And I was kind of feeling foolish for it. Like I was like, man, it's kind of stupid to like do that with a broken hand. I need to take care of my hand. It's more important than like finishing some bike ride or whatever. And I think I mentioned that to Aaron, and he's like, yeah, once a skater, always a skater, dude. Like you'll never
100%.
that kind of way of doing things. To my own detriment sometimes, you know what I mean?
I got a good story for this, and then we could wrap it all up. The first century I ever rode, this is probably 2016 or 17. Like a couple days prior to it, I had this like toothache, and I went to the doctor, and they're like, "Oh, we got to like take this tooth out," and I was like, "All right, we'll try. We'll start drilling." And if it gets too deep, then we got to pull it, And they start drilling, and it's hurting, and whatever. He's like, all right, we got to pull it out, right? As he's pulling out my tooth, he breaks the one next to it. He goes, oh, I guess we got to take that one out too. And then the next one behind that was the wisdom tooth, and he's like, well, that's got to come out too anyway. So I get I go in for a filling, maybe an extraction. I get all 3 bottom teeth pulled out here. And I already had plans, like 3 days later or 2 days later, I was doing this, I'm doing my first century with my 2 buddies, and I did it.
Yeah.
And I was all swollen, and I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm doing it anyway. I said I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing.
Yeah, you got that, like, hard, mentality from somewhere, right? You developed it from something, and it, I think it can come from a lot of places, right? There's a lot of ways to develop those kinds of skills and kind of translate them, but yeah, it's kind of cool when you can see it like right from where you started to like you can pinpoint like this is why I can do this. Like that's kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So to speak, I guess.
All right. Well, do you have any message you'd like to give to the riders or the parents of riders or the people who used to ride? Anyone that might listen to this, what do you want to tell them?
Yeah, I think like. I think my message is like, don't get hung up on like trying to be the next pro or the next sponsor or the next anything like that, because there's a lot of ways to live life and a lot of good big things we need, contributions we can make in a lot of different ways that I think those kinds of things might be better left as hobbies when I look back at it in hindsight, and where like actual like real life goals being like taking care of your family, your friends, finding some sort of a way to contribute through like your career are really big, kinds of things. I think I would have rather done earlier in life than I did, where like I really focused a lot on doing this skate thing, put all my eggs in that and just went full for it. And I realize now that like I could have still done that, but I could have also done it alongside with a lot of other contributions that I could have made had I focused on different things earlier in life. Because the reality of it is, even now, my concept of time is all over the place. It's warped, whatever. That still happens when you're young, right? You look at something, you're like, oh, I do this for 4 years, or I do that for 5 years, or I do that for 7 years. Like, that ain't nothing, right? You look back now, like something you did for 8 years, it ain't nothing 20 years from now. But that foundation that you laid back there for 8 years is never going to leave you, right? You're solid on that. And so like, then you can take that and do all kinds of grand things with it. But you sort of got to lay that foundation first. I think a lot of times people do it the opposite way, and it doesn't really give them enough of a foundation to stand on, and then what do, right? Like, and at the same time, getting hung up on that, like being an action pro star or whatever, is just like another has been in a lot of ways, right? You got to kind of like, I think there's bigger ways to contribute to life and not, be that next guy jumping off some stuff, I guess.
I 100% agree. I'm totally with you. I preach the same thing about finding a happy balance.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I spend every day doing it all, right? You got to work some, you got to exercise some, and you got to spend time with people. Take time out, like pet your cats, hug each other, stuff like that. I mean, make sure we're all still good. Because life's short. Before you know it, you blink, things go by. 20 years ago, Krudco was this, we were doing all that, and now things are like, everybody's doing different things, and that's all great. Everybody's doing great things, no matter where they're living. All the people I've been in contact with are all, all living good lives as far as I know. But I don't know. Now I'm starting to ramble again.
All right, Greg. Well, it's been great having you. It's been
Thank
cool.
you.
It's a fun time. It was a little bit of a different experience for me because I didn't know you prior to this at all. So this is all like, what's this going to be like? It was really cool. I think a lot of the OG Rochester skate heads are going to really like this. My connection was going in and out earlier, and I dropped a bunch of frames, and it was getting randomly echoey at times. I couldn't figure out why. There seemed to be no rhyme or reason to it, so hopefully it doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, so hopefully, hopefully people enjoy the conversation that we've had. But yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the questions. And peace.
All right, and everyone, you guys all know the deal. All the share the stuff. I'm not going to say it. Everyone knows the deal. If you want to support the podcast, you can grab us on Patreon. You could subscribe for as little as $5 a month. It really helps the skate park in the slow times of the year. That link is in the description wherever you're listening or watching this video. Again, Greg, thank you for being on. And everyone else, I'll see you at the skate park later, and you can keep grinding.